Hello, welcome to the podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start conversation on Unit 3 Thinkers on Education, and thinker is Mohandas Gandhi 1869 to 1948. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born in Porbandar, situated in Kathiawar, Gujarat. His father and grandfather were chief minister in Kathiawar. After completing school education, he went to London to study law. He came back to the country and practiced law in Mumbai and Rajkot. He did not get much success in the profession and went to South Africa on an unexpected offer. His experiments in education started when he returned to South Africa in 1897 with his two sons and a nephew for whom he searched for an appropriate school. He could not send them to the school for European children, but he did not think that English as a medium of instruction employed in those schools was worthwhile. He used to run the Tolstoy farm, which could not afford to pay the wages that qualified teachers would demand. So he took upon himself the task of teaching the children. He decided to live among the children and lay the foundation of the character building and self-dependence in them. Gandhi encouraged the children to undertake all the chores ranging from the cooking to scavenging themselves. Certainly, a teacher would cooperate and guide them throughout the endeavor. Apart from physical training, he engaged in spiritual training of students. He returned to India in 1914, where he was destined to play a major role in freedom struggle and importantly in the educational reconstruction of the country. There is no denying that colonial rule had eroded the traditions and values of the education system as people were imparted Western education that prepared them for minor positions in the government machinery of the British. This class of people educated in the Western system easily gave into the lucrative offers of the colonists at the expense of their own dignity. He tried hard to overthrow colonial education and present an alternative that people could relate with and find useful. Gandhi was concerned with the rising trend of people giving up their vocation after acquiring Western education. Cobbler, carpenters, blacksmiths, masons, tailors tended to surrender their vocations, treating them as inferior. They would take pride in joining the position of clerk in offices. Gandhi proposed Nai Talim or basic education, which emphasized the introduction of productive handicrafts in the school curriculum and in doing so bestowed honor and dignity to those who are adept at them. In the word of Kumar, it implied a radical restructuring of the sociology of school knowledge in India, where productive handicrafts had been associated with the lowest groups in the hierarchy of caste. Knowledge of the production processes involved in craft, such as spinning, weaving, leatherwork, pottery, metalwork, basket making, and bookbinding had been the monopoly of specific caste groups in the lowest stratum of the traditional social hierarchy. Many of them belonged to the category of untouchables. India's indigenous tradition of education as well as the colonial education system had emphasized the skills such as literacy and knowledge of which the upper caste had a monopoly. In terms of its epistemology, Gandhi's proposal intended to stand the education system on its head. The basic education hence favored the children belonging to the lowest rungs in society. This facilitated the process of social transformation. According to Gandhi, schools should be self-sufficient so that the poorest of the poor could educate themselves. This could happen only if the schools could generate enough resources for themselves. Further, schools that are self-sufficient do not fall prey to the whims and interference of the state. Teachers should not be made to give into the dictates of bureaucracy and teach out of the curriculum laid down by it. Learning was not confined to memorizing contents in the textbooks. Gandhi believed that in India, where more than 80% of the population subsists by agriculture and about 10% by industries, delimiting the scope of education to literacy was not appropriate. Boys and girls should be encouraged to value manual labor. In fact, carpentry, spinning, and other crafts may be used as a means of stimulating the intellect. This can be made possible by explaining the underlying mechanism. When a child interested in spinning, for instance, is explained the mechanism of the working of the wheel, the history of cotton, the method of determining the strength of the yarn, his or her intellect gets sharpened. This was true education. He was in favor of the mother tongue as the medium of instruction, for English creates a divide between those who are highly educated and the many uneducated people. Moreover, comprehension is faster and better when children are taught in their mother tongue. Gandhi clearly stated that if English were removed from the curriculum of primary and secondary or high school education, then it would be possible to make the children go through the whole course in 7 years instead of 11 years. Gandhi stayed with Rabindranath Tagore at Shantiniketan for about a month. In the course of close interaction between the two thinkers emerged consolidated ideas on the future of education in India. Gandhi set up his Dharma in Sabarmati, in which he also established a school for children. He proposed the following schemes for education: adult education for whole community, including the parents of newborn babies; pre-basic schooling from 2 to 7 years; basic schooling from 7 to 14 years; post-basic education from 14 to 18 years; and university and teacher training institute education. The schedule consisted of rendering the morning prayers, cleaning of the campus, including laboratories, engaging in productive works, for example, spinning, weaving, cultivation, and others, preparing meals and studies that related to the day's work and its scientific, mathematical, and other aspects. Students were taught to think before doing and think after doing. All of them were imparted training in music and arts. Stagecraft and management were an important part of the education. In the afternoon before the dinner, they played games. The evening prayers was ecumenical. In the scheme of the Nai Talim, there was no place for textbooks, but the students were encouraged to use library to enhance their knowledge. Over a period of time, Nai Talim schools were set up throughout the country. Nai Talim schools did not succeed as institutions. They were thought to be meant for villagers, so the political elite did not support them. Gandhi's idea on education, however, continued to inspire many intellectuals and humanitists. Here we want to wind up this conversation and thank you so much for choosing this podcast.